Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2026 Speakers Inc. Summer Virtual Showcase Series. Now, for those of you who are wondering who is this fine specimen of a human creation, my name is Lerato Ditsejo, a certified 10 out of 10, the undisputed head girl in charge. I am an entrepreneur, a speaker, and a coach. And today, I have the great honor of introducing to you the incredible Rehema Isa. She is a business strategist and executive leadership practitioner with over 25 years experience in guiding organizations through change. Now, as co-founder of Oya Solutions, she helps unlock growth and build high-performance teams. She is a master storyteller and coach and has trained over 2,000 professionals through her acclaimed storytelling masterclasses at Duke Corporate Education and Wits Business School. She co-founded Womenomics Africa and Oya Foods, advancing women's economic empowerment and agri-food innovation. Rehema has been recognized as the Male and Guardian Women in Business 2023 and Women of Stature overall in 2022. She is a TEDx organizer and head speaker coach for TEDx Littleton Women and has amplified voices of over 100 African women. Rehema holds an MBA from Wits Business School and is a sought-after keynote speaker who touches on strategy, leadership, and the power of narrative. And the title of her talk today is Telling Tales, Mastering the Essential Art and Business Science of Storytelling in Organizations. And here she talks about, in the age of data overload, leaders face a very critical disconnect on how to move people from understanding into action. And so this keynote reveals storytelling as the essential bridge. Here she reframes storytelling from a soft skill into a more strategic leadership discipline, blending both the art of connection with science of the organizational performance. Now, through her talk, she will unpack a very, very practical framework that touches on three very powerful story types. With the first one is the why story, followed by the failure story, and then, of course, the origin story. So hers is about designing communication that has vision, creating that genuine connection, and just guiding us through how to do it all authentically through the power of storytelling. So please give a warm round of applause for Rehema Isa.
I'd like you to invite you into the world where we pay attention to the stories that have been told. I want you to think about the first leader that actually convinced you that they were worth following. The first leader that made you pause and reflect on where you were going. Mine wasn't in the boardroom. Mine was in a rural town, far away from Dar es Salaam, in a place called Misugusugu in Tanzania. It was my grandmother. She was blind. I was sitting in the middle of the night and I was screaming simply because I was afraid. I believed I had seen a ghost. My grandmother walked out of her room, came to mine, took my hand, and walked me outside. You see, we were living at that point in time, my grandmother was staying in a house that was made out of mud. And I want you to understand that there was no electricity at that time. She took me and we sat outside. And what was significant about my grandmother was that she was blind. She couldn't see. She sat and she listened and she calmed me. And she gave me a story. At that point in time, I was completely convinced that the only people who were truly able to listen or truly able to understand were perhaps those who couldn't see in the same way. Now think about the person that made you believe. Where were they? What did they share? And how did they communicate it? The power of storytelling lies not just in the storyteller's tale. It lives in how they exist, the storyteller's being. My grandmother convinced me at that point in time that it wasn't her ability to have sight in the same way, but it was her ability to communicate in a way that I understood. As business leaders, we are convinced and we are compelled and we are shared, we're told constantly that the way to engage is by data and by insights. We are inundated with facts and information. Quite frankly, more facts than we can process. But people don't buy into facts. It's just like me telling you the latest Formula One series standing. If I just tell you what the scorecard looks like, it tells you nothing about the energy. It tells you nothing about the participants. It tells you nothing about why you should get excited or switch teams from McLaren to Ferrari or whichever you are following at that point in time. You see, stories bring much more dimension to the tales that are being told or the information that's being shared. Stories share with you the ability to connect personally, individually, the ability for you to engage and be fired up, and the ability for you to believe. Now, as a leader, you are looking for a way to be authentic, a way to be at home with how you believe, how you think, and how you exist. But you want to be able to portray that and communicate that in a way that people can connect with, that makes them believe that this is not just about you, but it includes them. And that comes to how you, as a leader, can use the art and skill and science of storytelling to remain authentic to your true self, to be rooted in how you engage and communicate, but to masterfully address and harness the tools available to you to tell stories impactfully. I do believe there are three key stories that, at minimum, any leader should have in their arsenal. And these stories are wired to be able to, for you to connect in particular ways. As the leader, you have to be able to tell a why story. Why do you exist? Why should I follow you? Why should I believe you? Why do you matter? I sat with an individual the other day, and they were telling me about their personal experience in financial services. They had a banking product, and their daughter had gone on an international trip. And for some reason, something happened and there was fraud. And the process that they went through to be able to just rectify the issue gave them such disconnect that they decided to cancel all their accounts. How many times have we heard about people having experiences in situations where they decide to rather exit from the system? As a leader, you're trying to communicate the why for staying in the system. So in that financial institution, I would propose that the intuition, the for that leadership institution, what I would suggest that their proposition is, their why, is to make the lives of their customers easier so that their customers have no reason to think about how money moves. That's not the business they're in. The customers are in the business of utilizing that money and transacting it on their needs. But the wheres and withals of how money moves is the business of the organization. Now, how do you take that narrative? How do you, as a leader, allow people to start believing in how they can be ooh, I'm so nervous today.
It's okay. What you can do is actually start it from where you left off, so just the beginning. So
Yeah.
we'll be able. I'm sure we can use everything else. And just before you tripped up on your word, start the sentence from the beginning, and then we will find a way to bring it together. Duncan, is that okay?
Yes, that's fine. I'll edit it. Just take a breath.
Yes, we will edit.
It is hard
Okay.
because you're not presenting to anyone, so I understand that it's very hard and it's just a screen.
Fantastic.
Just breathe. You're doing fine. Just breathe, and you know what? It's authentic, so
Yeah.
Please,
it's good. That's the main thing.
please.
We can edit all this out. I'll do all that, so don't worry about that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm trusting that, so I'm just gonna go. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Okay.
Okay.
The first story to be shared is the why story. How does a leader translate a why story? A why story gives people a reason to believe in the journey, the destination. A why story gives us a sense of why that proposition makes sense, why that direction is the most logical one. It's backed by evidence, it's backed by anecdotes, it's backed by expectations, and it's backed by desires, wants, needs, and energy. So as a leader, you're enrolling people not only into where you want to go, but you're also enrolling them into the reality that there's a journey to be made. So with organizations that are implementing change, such as financial systems, or I cannot believe myself today.
That's okay. That's
Mm,
okay.
thank you.
The joy is that you just have myself and Duncan as the audience.
Trust
And
me,
we
even
are
on
here.
stage, I would pause. I would be like, okay, let's I think it's because I've slightly got a script in front of me and that
Okay.
always throws me. So I'm gonna ditch my script. And within the
Okay.
12 minutes, I'm going to speak what I know about the subject matter that I know and I teach all the time. Yeah.
Okay. So you can pick it up from the why. So let's start from there, the frameworks.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right. Let's pick it up from there.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, we're gonna go. Let's start with the why story. The why story is a story of direction. The why story is my reason for believing. The why story is why should I engage? What is it that you have that allows me to believe that you are worth following? The why story gives me a sense of the future. The why story gives me comfort. It gives me certainty. It gives me a location that I can pin. And once I've pinned that location, my destination is ascertained. The why story gives me a sense of there is somewhere we are going and I'm not going alone. As a leader, you are able to tap into this narrative of the why story by being clear yourself about what it stands for you. You've got to create an emotive pull towards why have you chosen that direction? Why have you chosen that destination? Some ways of being able to do that just are about looking at hindsight. What has happened before? Having a sense of insight. What did you take out of that? And the why story gives you intent. The why story tells you what it is that you could believe in that looks very different to what you had before. Now, as a leader, you share this by being continuously narrating the why. This is why I want to do it. And you'll find many different reasons and nuggets to have that why. I do think many people think that you're going to have one crystallized why right at the beginning, and that's not the case. The why is often a sequence and series of evolution, thinking through what it is. It's almost like the art of asking the right question. Because if you ask why enough, you get to that nugget as to this is why. But also in creating the landscape for asking that why often enough, you start enrolling people into that why. And they start bringing their why into it. They start bringing and allowing themselves to engage in that vision because not only are they hearing it as direction, but they're also looking at it as participants and engaged and enrolled partners into going in that way. The second story is really about the failure story. And I'm saying the failure story because often as leaders, we sit in roles where we're believing that we can't talk about failure. We can't talk about the things that don't work. The failure story is perhaps the biggest arsenal that you have in terms of engaging people on how things could possibly not work. But it also allows them to understand that in a journey towards the why, it's not going to be straightforward. It's not going to be a bed of roses. There are going to be ups, there are going to be downs, and they're going to test you. What you're able to do is to use metaphors and stories to demonstrate what historically has happened and where things did not go as planned, but the resilience that is built in and factored into the system that allows you to tap into those knowledge and insights that exist within those who are participating on the journey. It gives you comfort that we've seen this before, we've navigated this before. This might look different, but if we actually explore it a little bit further, we can see elements of the journeys that have shown us we have created navigation paths. That's so exciting to walk on a journey and to now start with anticipation and foresight, the ability to plug in scenarios, not only in an anticipatory way, but also in a responsive way. So, as those who are mitigating and managing risk, it allows you to take comfort in the fact that you have considered not only what's going to happen, but also take heart that there are those who understand how to navigate it, or if you're not able to navigate it in the immediate present moment, you're able to pause, tap into skills around you, but also learn. So the failure stories are about what didn't work so well. I would talk about my failure stories often, and I would talk about, and I would sit and I would laugh because in the middle of failure, the last thing you want to do is make so much light of it that people think you're not taking it seriously. But I would laugh and I would say, oh my goodness, this is a new failure. I failed in different ways, but this is a new one. So this is a new test to be able to see how can I navigate this. A leader's ability to narrate failure skillfully is one that allows themselves to come across as being human. It allows that pause moment to just demonstrate that we're all in this together, and leadership is not necessarily about having the ultimate perfect outcome. It's about having the humility to understand that you're human. It's about understanding and being able to communicate that growth versus perfection is a more powerful trait. It also allows you to say that there's no us versus you, it's a we. It allows you to create a collective around how we navigate when things don't work. And whilst I started off with the narrative of failure, because that draws to your attention immediately the subject matter, which is what you do, then you start diffusing it and start creating new nuances of interpreting what failure looks like. And then it goes from being a negative word in an organization to one that's embraced, almost like, oh, how did we fail this week? We failed in this way, but failure doesn't become a stick to hit people with. It becomes more a curiosity around what possible areas of navigation have we not explored yet that may come our way, that may stall progress, that may prevent us from getting to the destination that we want, but for which we have now shored up the skills and the competencies in order to navigate them. It actually creates a more robust engagement with all staff involved because everybody now is not afraid of showing up and doing things wrong. It creates a great layer of psychological safety around how people can grow in an organization and be free to learn from mistakes and bring new knowledge in that would otherwise not have had the birthplace to sit with comfort. So, in the narrative of fostering trust and belonging and using the failure story, what we're sharing is that we are all learning and we are all growing, and growth is okay, and growth is constant, and growth can be unpredictable. And for the things that we can predict, we are going to put in the tools, the processes, and systems to ensure that those don't keep falling down. The third story that as a leader, I think is absolutely imperative is the buy-in story. And I call this the enablement story. This is the creating social psychological safety story, but it's also the story of where we meet. I like to say that we meet each other's at intersects, at points in time. There's a lot that's happened before this moment that you're engaging with me. There's a lot that's happened in your life before this moment. We're all coming with mindsets, knowledge bases, perfect truths, and context of how we see the world, how we engage with the world. Here's the reality is that when we enter into an organization, we are coming to the organization at an intersect at a point in time. There is a reason why things are the way they are. Note, I don't say that it is right or it is wrong. I say there is a reason. As a leader, when we are onboarding people into spaces, part of what we need to take a lot more time on is onboarding them into how things were and how they came into where they are and what the current situation is. But we also need to take time to onboard the knowledge and insights of those who are joining our space in order to appreciate not only that they are coming into a space that exists as it is, but they are coming in with perspectives, with acumen, with skills, with reference points that exist in other environments that perhaps we haven't been exposed to because of either how we are designed, how we are structured, how we are organized in terms of the people, the resources we've pulled, and just the connections we've created around how we work. The origin story, most people think is, oh, this is just, let's talk about, this is why we want to change and this is where we're going. The origin story is how did we get here? And it's not just about the organization, it's about the ecosystem that's going to navigate the current circumstances. And so the origin story for me, and briefly put, I would say is whenever you're going through a change process and you want to be able to understand, you want people to be able to understand what it is that we're going towards, you tell an origin story. And the best way to do that is doing like the river, a river of life. The river of life allows you to pinpoint for everybody, if we take it from the time the first person on this team was around to the time the last person is joining this team, and we juxtapose that onto the origin of the organization, we're able to tell rich stories and context, which gives us a sense of how people are thinking, what lens they're applying, what skills they're bringing in, that allows us to navigate the today. And taking that today, it allows you to look now at the intent more richly and allowing to see yourself in that intent. And together, having that origin story allows you to navigate a story around behavior and tactics to get better to it allows you to navigate better the behavior and tactics that will get you to the future destination and future scenario that you're working towards. So, in a nutshell, those three stories are the leader's arsenal in being able to communicate why I should be led by you. They're also able to communicate why it is safe to be in the space and for us to learn, nurture, and grow together. But importantly, it's a story or telling the story of how we originate allows us to say, I see you. You're not just a number. You're a valuable member of the team. You're coming in with knowledge and insights. So as a leader, here's a task for you. Think about your why story. Think about your failure story. And think about the story you're going to tell of your origin, which allows you to shape the story of your destination.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that was amazing. That was incredible. Thank you very much.
I had to go off script
Wow.
because I was trying to, and I was like, oh, screw that. That's not how I do it.
No, forget the script. You were just incredible. I loved how you were flowing there as you were speaking from your origin story as well. It sounded like it was a culmination of your why and your own moment of failure, and then your origin story as well, all in one. So thank you for that. That was absolutely beautiful, Rehema. You know, as you were speaking, I was thinking to myself, you know, the question of whether leaders are born or made has been asked so many times. And here I am sitting thinking about storytellers to say, are they born or made? And so the question I have is around how organizations can train and nurture storytelling skills across all levels of the business. How can organizations begin to do that?
Thank you so much for that one. I think in my experience over the last 15 years or so, part of what I observe is that we go so quickly into the storytelling, right? And I think organizations, the first thing that they need to do is start listening, story listening out for the stories that are actually existing in their ecosystem, listening in for the tone, the accent, and the origin of the stories. I actually ask organizations to reflect on the basic rituals that exist and what are the stories around the rituals. The rituals might be around having meetings, the rituals are around hiring, organizational structures and processes that we've created. There is a reason why. Unpack the reason why and unpack the stories that have become abundant through those existing processes and systems. Before you start trying to craft new stories, unlock why you were telling those stories, and then we can start working. So how do we tell the story better?
I love that. First time I'm hearing story listening as a first point of call. Absolutely love that, because I suppose there isn't enough of that happening anyway. So that would perhaps be a great place to start. Share with me, Rehema, was there a specific moment in your professional life where you had a light bulb moment, a ping moment when you realized that actually storytelling wasn't just a nice to have, but actually a critical leadership skill?
Oh, absolutely. I decided to do research and storytelling in organizations in South Africa as my master's dissertation because I thought it was going to be easy. I cried because I couldn't find any African reference points. All the reference points that I found were based in the US or in Asia
Yes.
around how storytelling was
Mm.
practically applied. And it made me extremely despondent. I remember sitting in the room when they were saying, this is not going to pass. You've got no peer-reviewed context. And it made me
Mm.
extremely concerned that the African leader's perspective, tone, experience was almost silent. So what does leadership from an African context look like? Do we not lead organizations? And yet we've got so many local and global organizations that have thrived, that actually must be picking up from our ethos, our culture, our knowledge bases. So how do we capture that? And I found that the greatest leaders at that point in time who were being touted were those who were telling stories and who were actually celebrated for the ability to tell stories. My aha moment came when and I always say this to people, just research African leaders and storytellers, and you're going to find politicians or you're going to find sports people. You're not going to find as
This is
many
true.
business people, which is a
Yeah.
disaggregated collective. That worried me. And I like working on things that worry me.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So, a lot of our leaders are rewarded, though, for their strategic and analytical skills. How do you respond to an executive who says, I don't have time for stories. My job is to deliver results? What do you
Yeah,
say to that type of leader?
I say your job is to deliver results and you work with people. Humans' way of engaging is through communication. And when you only telling people facts and you're not telling them the why, and you're not engaging them and connecting with a reason to believe, a reason to follow, and a direction that is clear, you're going to lose them. So, in fact, my greatest turnaround is always with mostly engineers who will sit in the room and say, we don't need to tell a story. And until we start understanding that storytelling is not foreign to how we engage, it is perhaps the vocabulary that allows us to have a common connection with what we're doing anyway. And then understanding that it has a skill to it. From the minute we wake up, we're telling stories. We just haven't
Sure.
used that lexicon to associate it with what we're doing. So I think for me, it's almost about demystifying it. Sometimes to bring new words, words are going to go through cycles. Right now, everybody's
Yes.
storytelling, right? But here's the reality is that as humans, we are storytellers. When we have rituals such as weddings, funerals, those rituals are passed down because they are maintaining a cultural practice. Cultural practice is sustained through narrative. So if you think about it that way, the cultural practice, even in your business, even the processes that you have defined that become your standard operating procedures, it's a narrative, it's a story. Now you need to give people a reason to believe why that should be. It could be because of safety. It could be because of profit, but there is a narrative. So you're not divorced from it. You're just going to be looking at how to be better skilled at using the language that connects you with it.
I love that. I think that element of connection is a critical one. That is how we've been able to do it for centuries, is through exactly that storytelling, but understanding why that connection exists. So thank you very, very much. I've got one last question. I know we spoke about story listening. Um, how do you, as Rehema, find or craft your own stories? Is there an intuition or perhaps reflective practices? Please just give us a glimpse into your own process of how you are able to take that art and merge it with what do we call it? Business science.
Yes, it starts with listening. I found that I used to like
Yes.
talking a lot. So it starts with listening, but important listening is one thing, reflection. And so I have a practice of sitting back and saying, what happened here and what does it mean? What happened here? What does it mean? And I connect that everywhere. So I have found that in asking that question, I ask it of myself and I ask it of those around me. What did you see? What did that mean for you? So I look
Yeah.
for meaning. More than just listening to the story, I want to understand the interpretation in the space. We can have exactly the same story. I can tell you Cinderella in five different ways. And the
Yeah.
difference would be the meaning that's associated with how the story was told, what was accentuated, what was elevated, what was suppressed. Because we are manipulative as storytellers. We can manipulate the story in the story outcome. So I think fundamentally it is really about understanding meaning and intent and being
Yes.
able to sit back and distill and question and check in. Check in as to whether or not meaning and intent, if I'm the storyteller, meets what the audience's desires, intentions, and needs, and importantly, utility are. And checking in with myself whether or not I am being consistent and clear and still retaining authenticity.
I love that. Meaning, intent, and still retaining authenticity. Rehema, you were absolutely incredible. Well done. And thank you so much for your time this morning. Thank you for sharing. And to our viewers, to learn more about Rehema, please do visit www.speakersinc.co.za, or more importantly, to book this phenomenal speaker, please email info@speakersinc.co.za. My name is Lerato Tshego. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful, wonderful day.